Fallout's been a franchise I've been playing for years. I started playing Fallout shortly before New Vegas came out. My friend at the time lended me a copy of the game, and I really did not know what to expect. I had no prior knowledge of the franchise, as I never watched any trailers or even knew who Bethesda was at the time. But as soon as I played the game, I fell in love with the franchise, quickly becoming obsessed with the idea of my hometown and what it would be like in the Fallout universe. I grew up in Honolulu, Hawaii, and was huge into Hawaiian history at the time. As a Pacific Islander, it always irritated me about how the islands were stolen by the US. To clarify, I'm not Hawaiian, I'm Chamorro, which is, well, we come from Guam and Saipan. We're another island. or, I mean, I guess you could say we're all related. All Pacific Islanders are related. But yeah, more than just Hawaii got stolen. The U.S. kind of took over. I I can go on about it all day, so I'm not going to. But yeah, back to the script. All right. I've always liked the idea of Fallout being in America and about Americana, but I also am really curious about what's outside of the U.S. as you get to meet characters like Moriarty and Kate, and I don't think Bethesda should do a Fallout game set anywhere else other than America, but I am kind of getting tired of the mainland, and so I feel like Hawaii would be a really good place to set the game, just because it's still technically America. It's the 50th state, so there's Americana in the islands, even though it's super far away from the U.S. mainland. So it'd be kind of like a middle ground between a foreign Fallout game and a American usual typical Fallout game, if that makes any sense. So in my fictional Fallout Hawaii spin-off Fallout 5 game, it would be a big departure than what we're used to, but it would also have tons of elements of Fallout New Vegas. And yeah, I'm going to say some stuff. I'm going to sound super crazy, but I hope you enjoy and hear me out, because I think I have some really good ideas that would, I think, make Fallout interesting at the very least. So, here we go. I'd have my Fallout set in chapters. One in pre-war, another post-war, and then finally the Endgame. Not Avengers. I know this sounds crazy, but let me explain. So, similar to Fallout 4, the prologue of the game would take place pre-war, but in my version it would go even further back, showing how the actual conflict started. The game would start off way different than what we're used to. It would start with you at a computer terminal making a resume, as your friend just warned you that you are getting fired from your job. And so at this moment, it'd be the typical special, screen where you create your stats, but it would also have the ability to, like, if you want to put points into guns or cooking or things like that sort. It's your typical menu. It's being disguised as a resume as your character is getting fired in 5 minutes. When the boss comes up to you, depending on how you talk to your boss in the dialogue, it would cause you to go down a certain life path. Similar to like talking to Doc Mitchell. You know how like it does the whole points thing. Um, but yeah, instead of that being for points, it would be for your specific life path that you would go down. So something like Cyberpunk or Dragon Age Origins. Hopefully, it's more like Dragon Age Origins. And depending on what life path you would go down, you would meet pivotal characters in the game that will be there for the rest of the game, or maybe not be there for the rest of the game. But so like Dragon Age, you have the chance of meeting the mage Jowen if you play as a mage, like at the very start of the game. You also have a chance of meeting Jowen if you don't play as a mage, but at a later time. And so it'd be kind of like that. So depending on how you answer, if you answer your questions rudely or you cause a scene, then you would, I don't know, meet characters with negative karma much earlier than if you were a character who took it like a champ and was okay with being fired. You would meet those negative characters much later in the story than what you usually would. After you get fired and that whole sequence happens, you leave your office that you're working at, and basically you get to explore the map and walk home. I think it'd just be kind of cool to like see the world pre-war. And once you go home, you hear about Alaska being taken over by China. So after you get home, you turn on the TV and you get to see Alaska being invaded by China. And at that point, you have multiple options. You can go and straight ahead and apply for the military and join the military, or you can go and try to do quests. So if you want to, you can kind of like get a little bit of like an extended prologue and I don't know, test new mechanics out. So if you go straight into the military, they're all gonna end up having you join the military at the very end. So if you decide to do shady things like get into a crime where you get caught, then you have to join the military. If you decide to get a normal job at like a bakery or whatever, then you get drafted, like a forcible draft. And so no matter what, you always end up being in the military and being a soldier fighting the Chinese in Alaska. But it gives you the illusion of choice and maybe like an additional 40-50 minutes of gameplay in the prologue. It's kind of always weirded me out that like the character is able to just leave the vault and no combat already, and so them being forced into the military, I feel like kind of makes sense for them to at least get like a grasp on the combat. And yeah, I don't know, it makes sense to me story wise. Also, I think it would be just kind of interesting to see America and like how it changes over the years story wise, if that makes any sense. I hope it does. As a soldier, you would have a couple of missions that you would do, and then eventually your character gets injured and gets sent back home. And when you get sent back home, you can kind of see the aftermath of the resource war, or well, I guess during math. I don't know what it would be called, but you can see the change. So the city that the game would take place in is Honolulu, or just the entire island of Oahu. But that beginning part would be, so like I guess you could say there's like micro chapters. So the very beginning is before the invasion of Alaska, and then the second part of the prologue would be the the second part of the prologue would be like coming back home and seeing how things are. Like certain places are boarded up, people are crying on the streets because people have died and that kind of thing, people coming back injured, and it would just kind of, I guess, flesh out the world a little bit more. Like that whole pre-war thing is really interesting to me personally, and I would love to see that whole world fleshed out. And so it would kind of do a little time jump, and that's when the Great War happens in Fallout, and basically we get the normal Fallout that we're used to. So yeah, we would get the normal Fallout that we're used to, which is the post-war nuclear thing going on. Oahu, though, I don't think would get bombed. And the reason why I say this is because the reason why the US wanted Hawaii is because it's in the perfect location. So if we were to ever go to war with Asia, it's in the perfect location because it's close enough to bomb Asia, but it's also close enough to the US. So like if let's say Hawaii got bombed, then we kind of have like time for like the mainland. They'd be like ready, so I don't think Hawaii would get bombed. I don't think I think if there was to be bombs, I think it would probably be one of the outer islands. And I'm so sorry to all the people who live in the outer islands by saying you guys are outer. I know Oahu is technically not the main island, but I'm from Oahu. What do you expect? We kind of think we're better than you. But yeah, I think the outer islands would be bombed. Definitely not Big Island. I think Big Island would be an awesome DLC, and I think Maui would also be a really awesome DLC. So I don't think it would be a wise idea to bomb either of those two islands in the Fallout universe. So it'd be very similar to New Vegas in the sense that, like, there's not really any radiation in the map. It's more so of the world everywhere else is fucked up, and you're dealing with the repercussions of that fucked up world. And so this is where I go and I introduce the factions in my story. So, like I said, US wanted Hawaii because it's a perfect place. So if we were to ever go to war with Asia, then bam, Hawaii's right there to launch all the attacks that it possibly can. And so I think it would be really interesting to have the US versus the natives and locals versus the Chinese. I feel like it'd be really interesting to have Chinese have a presence in, the game. Like I know we got the DLC, the Operation Anchorage, and we got to deal with them in that DLC, and then in Fallout 4 you get the one guy in the submarine, and he's like a ghoul now. I think it would be really interesting though to actually have a whole faction of the Chinese army in the game, and they're trying to take over the land. And then you also got the US being like, nah, this is our land. And then you got us locals who are like, how about both of you get off the island? This is our land. And so it's very similar to Fallout New Vegas, where you got like 3 factions. You got the Mr. House, and then you got, okay, that's more than 3, but you got the NCR and Caesar and Mr. House, and then you got Free Vegas. In my Fallout game, it would be the U.S. Army versus the Chinese Army versus the locals, and so the locals would kind of be like the Free Vegas ending. But those would be the 3 main factions, and they're all trying to fight for the island and the island's resources. And I didn't say this right away, but I think it would be really cool to have the game actually take place during the time that the bombs fell. So like seeing that world of just them losing all communication with the rest of the world all in a blink of an eye, I think would be really cool. Like, I think it would be so cool to see that. And then yeah, I think that would be really awesome. What else? But yeah, those would be the 3 factions. And I think it would be really cool if you could find a way, like a 4th way of uniting everybody, and like for everybody to like not take blame, or not be each other's enemy. And so that'd be kind of like the Minutemen ending in Fallout 4, where like it's not really the ending anyone wants, but it's like the right ending, which is uniting everybody, uniting all the factions, being like, hey, yeah, both of you guys fucked up the world. Y'all still don't really belong on the land, but the rest of the world is fucked up. So, but you gotta fight for that. And I don't know, people, I'm sure a smart developer can come up with like ways that, like, I don't know, people would have issues with each other. I'm just coming up with the base ideas, and then people can plant. I'm planting the seeds, and then people can they can water it and let that bitch grow. But yeah, now on to the creatures and the enemies that you would fight. And yeah, so in my personal opinion, I don't think there should be any Enclave. I don't think there should be any Brotherhood of Steel. I'm so sick of Bethesda retconning shit and putting Enclave and Brotherhood in places where they should not be. So please, no Enclave, no Brotherhood. I don't want to see a Deathclaw. I don't want to see Super Mutant. I don't want to see a Centaur. None of those things. in my Fallout Hawaii Fallout 5 spin-off game, we would have completely new enemies. I have always kind of felt like Fallout should have kind of like an anthology presence. So yeah, like the lore stays the same. Like the bombs dropped, but like I always kind of felt like every city should have its own creatures and things like that. I love the Wendigo in Fallout 76. I love the Mothman thing in 76. Like that stuff is cool, like because it's specific to that location, So in Fallout Hawaii, I think it would be really fucking cool to fight a fucking megalodon, like because the water's gonna be irradiated somewhat in like certain areas. Speaking of which, the U.S. dropped a bomb in like Micronesia, like in the ocean, and fucked up the ocean. So like that's where I guess you can get the radiation, is maybe if you go to the beach and you go fishing, you'd have to deal with some irradiated ass fish, and that could be like a mission where you and your characters are struggling on how do you remove the radiation from the food, because Hawaii doesn't really have a lot of places where you can grow crops. Like, yeah, there's a shit ton of open land, but that's on the other islands. That's not on Oahu. Oahu is like very city-like, so extremely city-like. So food resources, that's an issue. That's a huge issue that would be going on. What else? So yeah, like I think it'd be cool to have like mutated fish that you got to deal with, or mutated. Fucking Hawaii has a shit ton of cockroaches and centipedes and tons of different bugs. There's a spider that fucking flies from island to island. Could you imagine like fucking like a huge ass spider? I mean, I know I don't think Fallout has done like spiders. Or just imagine a fucking centipede the size of a person. Hawaii has a bunch of like lizards as well. And I just, like fucking sharks. Like a fucking megalodon would be so dope. Or a kraken, like I think there would be there could be so many different shit. Maybe radioactive birds that are fucking huge as shit, because there's a bunch of birds, I think that'd be really cool. Maybe gigantic. This is not a villain or anything like that, but I want to say it anyways. A radioactive rainbow. Hawaii's it's the rainbow state. Our driver's license literally has a rainbow on it. I think it'd be fucking dope to see like what an irradiated rainbow would look like. I'm throwing ideas out, Bethesda. You gotta take them and go with them. But yeah, no, I think it'd be really cool to see like a gigantic radiated rainbow, and just different sea creatures. A lot of Fallout hasn't really focused on the ocean, and I think that would be kind of a new game mechanic that I think would be really awesome and would work really well in a Fallout game. Also, I think it would be crazy. I know I said it, I'm not really a fan of like there being that much radiated areas on the islands, but like most of the houses in Hawaii are like wooden, so like you can easily come up with like destroyed houses and shit like that. Like it would be, yeah. And yeah, resources would be small. It's an island. So now on to the end game. What I mean by that is I love the idea of Fallout Brotherhood of Steel, like the DLC. Like that whole, is it Broken Still? I think it's Broken Still. It's not Brotherhood of Steel. Broken Still, where okay, you get to play after the game ended, and the credits roll. That's what I mean by Endgame. I think it would be awesome to see, I guess, your repercussions to flourish. So if you sided with the Chinese, then you see the island in a certain way. If you sided with the U.S. Army, you see the island in a certain way. If you sided with the natives, you see it in a certain way. And if you side with all of them together, you see it in another way. I think it'd be really cool to just have the game have different set of environments at the end of the game. So like you can still do like missions and stuff like that, but when you do them now, the environment will be different. So maybe because you sided with one faction, a certain character will be dead, and so you do that mission, but now it's with a different character than what you would normally have if that character was alive because they were with another faction or something like that, if that makes any sense. So that's just a personal opinion. I think Endgame should be like that. Where like drastic decisions that you make cause drastic things. Like maybe if certain quests that you completely failed and you can't do them anymore because that person's dead, because you chose a certain faction, they weren't with that faction, and therefore bam, they're dead, and now you have to just do that quest for somebody else. Somebody else will give you that quest. I feel like it would really show that what you do matters, in that world. Because I feel like Fallout, it's not like Cyberpunk where the only character that's important is you, and you only really affect you and the people around you. Fallout's an RPG where you affect the world. I mean, like Fallout 1, you stop the super mutants. That's a pretty big deal. Fallout 2, you stop the Enclave and Frank Corrigan. That's a really huge deal. So in Fallout, and in Fallout 3, I mean, you purify water. That's a really big deal. So yeah, Fallout, you play really important people. Like, so in Fallout 5/Hawaii, you would play a pretty pivotal role in all the islands. And that's my transition to DLC. So I would love to have a DLC set in Maui or Big Island, and or both of them. And I would think it would be really cool if they added some mechanics from Ubisoft, which is crazy to say because Ubisoft is a really shitty RPG developer. I mean, they're trying to develop like Assassin's Creed RPGs. Now, get me wrong, I kind of love playing them. Like, I love Valhalla, and I kind of liked Odyssey, like, a lot. But I love their sailing mechanics and the whole pirate thing that they got going on, where you can like hop onto other boats and stuff like that and like attack them. So like if Fallout could just like take some of Ubisoft's like mechanics, that'd be great. I would love to see you leave the island, if that makes any sense. Like for you to leave Oahu and go to another island by boat. Like that would be really awesome. Just to, like I said, I think it would be so cool to see the ocean play like a huge pivotal part. And I think it'd be really cool if it was all loaded in one map and you could just take a boat to another island. I think that would be awesome. I'm just gonna say that. I think it'd be really cool. If not, I mean, they can always just do it like how they have always done it, where you just have a black screen and then you end up in a new place. But I think it'd be really cool because, I mean, like, their engine is so old. They really need to get rid of it and they need to get a new one. And this new one, so many things. I really hope that whenever Fallout 5 does come out, that they also let you see your body. It's crazy that you have to add mods to Bethesda games to be able to look down and see your feet. Like, it just weirds me out that like they haven't added that. Like, so many games have had that for years now, and you still don't have it, Bethesda. You still don't have it. So yeah, the DLC, it would be taking place on the other islands, and I don't know. I think it would be really cool to have maybe some radiated plants attack you, or like just different, like a different vibe. I feel like it'd be really cool because if you've ever been to Hawaii, all the islands are drastically different. Big Island like snows on top of the island, maybe because of nuclear winter. The entire island is snowing instead of just the top of the island, and so you have like the entire like could you imagine that, like a whole island just snowing, and you gotta deal with cold, you know, and like kind of like those like frost mods for Skyrim, and it would like add a new mechanic, you know, where you gotta like bundle up and you gotta stay like, you know, and then like maybe Maui could be like heavily radiated, and so you gotta wear like a hazmat, and it's more like Metro than it is like Fallout, you know, and you gotta make sure that you got the hazmat suit on and the thing on, but like maybe there's like treasures or something like that, or your character could have like a loved one that was on the island, and you want to know what happened to them because you haven't heard from them in a while since the bombs dropped. That would be like the story. I don't know where the story could go, but I feel like both of them could be really interesting. Shit, even Maui snows very rarely, if I remember right. Like, Big Island, it's way more common. It's like every year during Christmas time. Also, depending on the time of year in the game, it would be really cool if like the waves and the tides changed. So North Shore during the winter of like in Oahu, the waves are fucking huge as fuck. They're like 50, 60, 70, 80, like they're gigantic. I know this is like a extreme like detail, but like it would be really cool if like you can have like waves be like that depending on like what seasons and stuff. Hell, even time of day, like just changing on the time of day, you know. Like, I used to surf all the time, and I lived in Kaimiki, 18th Ave, and I hated wintertime surfing down in Waikiki and Diamond Head because the waves weren't really that big. They were really tiny. But like summertime, they were a little bit bigger than I'm used to, and I love those because it was nice. Anyways, the point is time of day changing and stuff like that. I would love it so much if they added more just to the ocean in general. And yeah, I think it would be really cool. I think it would be a different type of Fallout than what we're used to. And we could maybe finally see what radioactive jellyfish look like. They are pretty weird as they are right now. Could you just imagine how terrifying a mutated radioactive jellyfish would be? SpongeBob would be shitting his pants. But if you made it this far, I really appreciate you watching. It means the world to me. And yeah, have a nice day. Please leave a comment, like, subscribe. More videos coming soon. The little idea video. Yeah, completely different Fallout from what we normally get, but I think it would be really cool, and hopefully Bethesda watches this and gives me a job, or Microsoft, because now Microsoft is apparently purchasing Bethesda. So Microsoft, I wouldn't mind a job to be a writer for your Fallout game. That'd be really great. Alright, bye everyone. Also, TKS Mantis, if you could cover this topic, that'd be really awesome. My goal is for TKS Mantis to watch this video and tell me what he thinks. I love his videos a lot, and he seems like a really cool dude who knows a lot about Fallout, and I don't know nearly as much about it as he does. But I would really love to get his opinion. I don't know. I think it'd be cool. Alright, bye.